up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stout Out Show, your one-stop shop for all things MMA bets, breakdowns, and predictions. On deck for today's show, we have UFC Fight Night 267 taking place this Saturday, March 21st. Main event's going to be Sean Strickland taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. But before we get into that, we're going to go discuss the whole card from the prelims all the way up to the main event. But little news update. I don't know if anybody saw it. Hopefully you did. Your boy went off for UFC Fight Night 266. 11-1, only lost one fight, crushed it. For PFL Dubai, we went 9-4, crushed it. Guys, we're up to 65% in win percentages. We're doing really, really good this year. Let's keep the momentum going. Positive vibes only. Nobody freak out. But I'm loving it. But on to the first fight of the night. We got Carli Judice taking on Juliana Miller in a flyweight bout. Judice is going to be the biggest odds-on favorite of the night. She's a minus 650 favorite, and while Miller is a plus 475 underdog. All right, Judice is 2-2 in the UFC. She's just coming over a solid TKO win against Nicole Cagliari that happened in July, and she's riding a nice 2-fight win streak. Also, whoever noticed, she's never been finished either, which is pretty good. She's a really forward pressure striker, uses heavy volume, guys. She loves, in terms when it comes down to the judges, if she's not getting the finish, that's a big optic for her. Lay on the volume, lay on the early strike combinations, and use her range to her advantage. At watching her fights, she uses those inside calf kicks really well, as well as body kicks. She loves keeping the distance, and she loves doing those 2-3 shot bursts as well. She doesn't panic under pressure, which is pretty cool. Not to mention, if she sets the tempo, she keeps the same pace for all 3 rounds. Really doesn't let up and let off the foot off the gas. The only thing I did see, though, I'm a little hesitant about, she will take a couple shots to get a couple off. Pause. Basically, but, she will definitely eat a left or a right hand to, make sure she can trade well. Obviously, if she's not dictating the tempo, her effectiveness kind of drops off in the later rounds. She's not dictating where the dance goes. That's, not her cup of tea. The paths for victory I see for her is, obviously claim the center of the cage early. Use her distance, use her range, and use her distance to her advantage. Body kicks, jabs all day long. Layer volume. Head body combos, again, kicks all day. If she gets in clinches, frame out, and, disengage immediately. We do not want to she does not want to stay on the cage, get taken down, mat return after mat return after mat return. Juliana Miller, on the other hand, she's 2-2 as well in the UFC. She's coming off unanimous decision against Ivana Petrovic that happened in May. And the cool thing with her is she's never been submitted. Okay. She's a real strong grappler, guys. She looks to close the distance super quick, force clinches and scrambles. And, if she can't advance position right away, she's going to, really enforce straight elbows on top of her opponent if she can try to, once she gains top control. If she doesn't get her first takedown offense, she's willing to shoot over and over and over again until she gets that takedown. If opponents deny her takedowns, that's kind of when her offense kind of tends to, get set aside. She gets super frustrated. But again, she relies more on control than she does submissions. She's not really. She looks for more, ground and pound damage than, obviously submissions. Like I said, the detriment to her though is that her aggression kind of overshadow that, and she can lose position because she becomes over aggressive, and then she can get swept. The style for her, doesn't really look good for Judice in terms of that. She really does not look good against fighters who keep her at range. Fighters who are able to deny her takedowns, and really she can get read pretty easily. Her takedown, like I said, she's always looking for those takedowns, so she's really, going to get good clean punches to her head if she doesn't get those takedowns. Her path to victory, as I see it, is basically crash distance early. No extended striking battles, just get to the ground. She's going to chain wrestle relentlessly, single body locks, mat returns all day. We're going to win. She wants to win those scrambles, not positional battles. She favors chaos over, over anything for her mentality. The biggest X factor I see for this one is just structure over persistence, obviously. Judice has the clever skill set and the clever path, range, striking, and volume. Juliana Miller, on the other hand, her style is built to stress test, right, guys? She's going to look for those takedowns. I've said that over and over, but that's her plan every minute, This fight hinges on basically whether Judice can keep it technical or whether Miller can turn it ugly and exhausting. I'm saying, obviously, I'm going with Judice. I'm going to say I'm saying it goes the distance, if not a late round 3 TKO, but more money than not, I'm saying Judice goes the distance, gets the W. All right, our next fight is going to be Yadier Del Valle taking on Jordan Leavitt in a featherweight bout. This is the second biggest odds on the night. Okay, Yadier Del Valle, he's a minus 350 favorite compared to Jordan Leavitt's a plus 275 dog. All right, Yadier Del Valle, this is his first fight back after after the betting controversy. I know a lot of people think that fight was fixed, but hey, he's back. I guess obviously nothing was proven, innocent until proven guilty. So here we are. Del Valle's still undefeated. He's 3-0 in the UFC, and obviously he's coming off his win against Isaac Delgarian that happened back in November. But to his defense, though, he's kind of a grappling savant, guys. He really doesn't rush bad positions, and he advances methodically when he's attached. He really, gets the seatbelt position, hip control, and then really looks to lock in the choke. Plus, he's a southpaw guy, so it's really going in for his angles. He's really creative when it comes to that. His success to this point is really round 1 submissions, right? Really fast, really take off submissions. He hasn't really fought anybody of note right now, like a good, a secondary grappler that could, kind of challenge him. But, that's what Jordan Leavitt is technically. He's a good grappler, but, we'll get to that in a second. But Del Valle's path to victory is pretty easy. Don't chase at range, cut the fence and connect with hands. Second phase wrestling, right, guys? If the first takedown is defended, what are we going to do? We're going to attack the body. We're going to try to lock him up, trip, get him back to the mat. Obviously, he's going to look for that back exposure, hunting for the rear naked choke. Jordan Leavitt, on the other hand, he's 7-4. He's coming off of a good sub win against Kurt Hollaball, and that happened in May in 2025. Obviously, Hollaball is not even in the UFC any longer. He just got cut. But, Leavitt's a submission first grappler, guys. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's a freestyle wrestler, take the back identity. The big knock on Leavitt, though, is 2 out of his 3 losses are by submission. So there are some defensive gaps there when it comes to grappling. Do I think he's got the grappling chops enough for Del Valle? No, but he does have some early finishes in his career and a slam KO that's going to keep his opponents honest. And I really do like his scramble IQ. His takedown setups are kind of varied, and he goes from either single legs or clinch takedowns, which are he keeps, like I said, he keeps his opponents guessing. Really thrives in his messy transitions, and just like Del Valle, really looks to take that back and ride the hips. His path to victory obviously is scramble conversation, right? Conversation and conversion. Don't just shoot, mix levels with strikes, and induce defensive reactions so he can make Del Valle screw up and kind of look for the counter. Obviously, he's going to look for back takes and neck attacks. Prioritize back exposure when he gets the guy on the ground. But the big thing is, can he get Yadier Del Valle on the ground? At the end of the day, for the X factors for this fight, this is a submission chess game through and through. Who is the better guy on the ground? Who can, last longer in terms of not making a mistake first? Personally, I think it's going to be Del Valle. I think Del Valle is going to win via submission in round 2. I think he takes the back. He has cleaner back control takes, and his finish efficiency is way better than Leavitt's. He doesn't need prolonged chaos. He needs just that one mistake in a scramble to really take advantage. If he dictates where the fight happens in terms of taking the Leavitt to the fence and then take him to the mat, it's all his all day long. So I'm going to go Del Valle, second round submission. All right, third fight up of the night is going to be Phil Rowe taking on Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani. Phil Rowe is filling in for the injured Austin Vanderford. Mrs. Van Zant, or Mr. Van Zant, as some may get him referred to him as. This is a welterweight bout. To Phil Rowe, to his credit, he's only a plus 165 dog. Lebosnoyani is a minus 200 favorite. Rowe's 5-4 in the UFC. He's coming off a unanimous decision to Seek Hyun Ko, who also was supposed to be on the card tonight, but on Saturday. He pulled out. I think he messed up his ribs or something, but he's no longer on the card. He's kind of my underrated guy of the UFC, of the welterweight division. He's, awesome, but that's for another time. He lost to him in November. Phil Rowe, he's got some good. His pedigree in jiu-jitsu is good. Obviously, he didn't show that in terms of the co-fight because he just kept, getting taken down and kept getting controlled. But he can definitely keep his opponents guessing, right? His, biggest weapon is his range and his length, right? He keeps that long jab that's straight, and, he has sneaky long hooks that show up when he's in rhythm. His reach is a real problem when he's in open space. He tends to start slower in fights. If you bank rounds with pressure and clinch, he can that's when he kind of starts builds his momentum, and he can start to win the rounds. He's most dangerous when he's extended and finding rhythm. The big thing that kind of the knock on him is structured boxing exchanges. That's what really fucks him up. That's going to tend to lose him the fight. Obviously, what he needs to do, in terms of paths to victory, the fence is lava. Do not get stuck against the fence. That is exactly how he lost against Siku & Co. It's, circle out early. Do not accept long clinch exchanges, and do not, do your best to try to avoid getting taken down. Attack the body in the second round if you make it that far. His best finishing runs come when his opponent's slow. He's got to invest in body damage early, especially using that jab and those hooks to the body. Lastly, just exit after you score, meaning basically use those 2 to 3 shot bursts, and then reset to range. Don't live in the pocket. Do not live in the pocket. Lebosnoyani, younger dude, 1-0 in the UFC, coming off a good KO win against Jack Condon that happened in September. But he's riding a solid 4-fight win streak. He's a switch stance guy, which obviously, can help him do clinch entries a little bit better, and he can high level changes pretty good. He looks built for messy exchanges, but, the big thing with him is that, he is a very, very big jiu-jitsu guy. He is in his teen years, in his younger years, he's, very polished, very award-winning jiu-jitsu guy. He doesn't, the big thing with him, if I had of anything, if opponents can keep him, off the hips and basically, wear him down with conditioning, that's kind of where he's going to fade. He's a younger cat in the game, but I just think he's got a little bit more going on than Phil Rowe, right? Basically, his path to victory is get to contact without eating clean shots, right? Feint, jab, crash to the collar, do the underhooks, and then take him down, right? Attack the back, even when we're in stand-up, right? If he walks, climbs, hooks, and he gets his hooks in, we're going to seatbelt right away and do the mat return. But this is position before submission, right? Don't chase low. If I'm Lebosnoyani, we're not chasing low percentage submissions. We're getting positional awareness, positional dominance, and then we're getting high percentage finishes in terms of submissions. This is a classic youth versus experience battle, guys, and I think Lebosnoyani is going to take it. Because of his grappling and his fight IQ, he's more likely to rack up rounds and control. Rowe obviously has power enough to keep him dangerous and keep Lebosnoyani honest, but I think Lebosnoyani's flexibility, gives him a slightly better shot to pull it out, especially if he uses his takedown offense early. So I'm going to go Lebosnoyani. I'm going to say it goes late into the fight with a third round submission, but I'm definitely going to say Lebosnoyani takes this one. The next fight we have is in the welterweight division. We got Ramiz Brahimaj taking on Soriano in the welterweight division. Welterweights are making an appearance this card. Brahimaj is 5-3 in the UFC, and he's coming off a good sub win against Austin Vanderford. If those who didn't see that, he cracked him with a good right hand and then really sunk his good guillotine leg choke. Brahimaj is making a little bit of a run here. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's never been submitted, and 90% of his wins, like I said, are coming from submissions. Especially guillotines and tight positional controls that earn him finishes. He thrives in the scrambles, guys. He turns scrappy exchanges into, submission opportunities. Obviously, case in point is the Vanderford fight. He's far from comfortable grappling. His striking isn't bad. It's definitely, it's obviously growing and getting to a point where it needs to be, but it does not look bad to me. He's especially like when it comes to like boxing and getting those 2-3 combinations, it looks pretty clean. Path to victory, obviously. Chain subs early. Trust his guillotine. Obviously, his guillotine is, that's got him to the ticket to the dance, so let's not forget what got you there, right? Mixing strikes, and that's going to bait the takedowns. Flow into some grappling feints, nothing chaotic into scrambles, but, keep Soriano guessing in terms of like, hey, is he going to take me down now? Is he going to take me down later? Or, is he going to try to catch me off guard with throwing some like real crisp hooks? Soriano, on the other hand, he's 7-4 in the UFC. He's coming off a great TKO win against Nikolai Venikov that happened in October. And he's also riding a solid win streak, 3-fight win streak. He's wrestling base. I think he's a former collegiate wrestler too. He likes to set up striking and then just pretty much use that for clinch control and then, obviously take him down to the mat. but he finishes roughly 7 of his wins are coming by KO or TKO, and some of them are pretty quick finishes as well. The big thing, the knock on him is his pressure. When he's super aggressive, that can definitely leave him open to counters, especially to like body shots. That happened against when he fought Roman Kopylov. Overexerted himself, got a little excited, and just took a body shot and just ended the fight. He has been submitted before against Dustin Stolfutz. That happened, again. I know he's a good collegiate wrestler, but again, like I said in the last thing, position before submission. You can't overexert yourself, especially with guys with super, super good BJJ pedigrees, like a Brahimaj, who's got a solid guillotine that's it's getting to the place where people are really looking out for that for him. Path to victory for Soriano is obviously he wants to establish the wrestling range, right? Use wrestling setups to close the distance and force, Brahimaj to reset his position. Use the forward pressure, head movement, very short combos, don't walk into the counters. This is pretty much MMA chess between Brahimaj's submission and finishing upside and Soriano's pressure striking. I've been going back and forth with this. I'm going to say this is going to be Brahimaj via second round submission. I just think he's got more upside. I think he's found his momentum not later in his career, but later, as he's going on. So I'm going to say Brahimaj via submission round 2. All right, next up we have Joselyne Edwards taking on number 12 ranked Nora Cornolle in the bantamweight division. Joselyne Edwards is ranked number 14, and she's a minus 300 favorite, while Cornolle is a plus 240 dog. All right, Joselyne Edwards is 7-4 in the UFC. She's coming off of a great KO win against Priscilla Cachoeira that happened in August, and she's riding a solid 3-fight win streak. If you guys did not see her knockout of Priscilla Cachoeira, it was solid. She caught her with a nice 1-2 right in the pocket and just dropped her like third period French. It was solid. Edwards she's got some real power in her hands, and definitely with some finishing instincts as well. She mixes boxing and wrestling super well, and she's really good at range control. Also has some, like I said, when it comes to that knockout, really good aggressive combos too. She lands a solid 4+ significant strikes per minute with accuracy of about 53%. So she's coming to knock you out. It's coming with some super aggression too. Her takedown output pretty modest. She's not really obviously a ground gal. She's not really looking to submit you. Obviously her strength's on the feet, but again, she can kind of handle herself well. She does have multiple decision losses, which kind of stands out for me there, simply for the fact that, she is not a volume striker. She's not, putting her foot on the gas, putting it on you in terms of heavy output with strikes. She's looking for that one shot, that knockout, that good clean counter, the good, super powerful combo to put you out. For her path to victory, what I see is basically establish range early. Use your jab, use your straight, keep opponents on the defensive end, kind of keep them guessing as well. Pressure with a purpose, obviously. Small lateral steps, use your feints before, committing to the combinations, and then, that way you reduce your risk of counters. Lastly, but not leastly, is, finish timing. Capitalize on her early explosive moments. Her best finishes come when she reads rhythm really good and drops heavy combos like we discussed. Nora Cornolle, on the other hand, she's 3-2 in the UFC, and she's coming off a unanimous decision loss to Carol Rosa that happened in August. Cornolle, obviously, she's ranked number 12 for a reason. She's never been finished, and for those who don't know, prior to her coming into MMA, she is a very, very well-established Muay Thai gal. I believe she finished silver medalist in the 2022 World Muay Thai Games. What that translates to in terms of MMA, she's really good in the clinch. She establishes solid damage when she's in the clinch with knees and elbows. She's got 3 decision losses also, but they're all, like I said, decisions. So if she, obviously if she can't do what she wants to do in terms of get her offense off in the clinch, she kind of lets the round slide by her. Her path to victory is easy. She has to win the first minute of each round. Claim the center of the cage, set the tone, focus Edwards on the back foot, lead the dance. Her exit discipline in terms of strikes has got to be pretty crisp too. Finish her combos, angle off, and don't get stuck trading places. Her big thing is clinch to strike, not clinch to bang. Short strikes, break, and then reset to Muay Thai range. The biggest X factor I see for this one is this is power versus polish. Edwards has the higher ceiling and explosive movements, but Cornolle offers the steady, more respectable striking game. Obviously, she was a Muay Thai striker, silver medalist, but so she can hang. I'm going to go with Edwards on this one. I'm going to think that she's going to get the either late third round TKO or basically, it might. I'm going to say it goes the distance. Give me Edwards for the win, but it goes the distance. Next up, we have Alden Coria taking on Luis Gurule in a bantamweight bout. Coria is a minus 275 favorite, while Gurule is a plus 225 underdog. Coria is young in the game, man. He's only 1-0 in the UFC, but he's coming off a very solid TKO win against Alessandra Costa that happened in September, and he's riding a 4-fight win streak. He has got a tremendous upside and very, very high ceiling. His approach is based on his opponent. He can kind of take the fight wherever he wants to go. He can strike, lands clean behind the jab, and really good combos. He also hunts for scrambles and submissions really good too. I think he boasts about a record of, he can finish both on the feet. He's got 5 TKO KOs and 4 submissions. Like I said, he works really well behind the jab, and that sets up his power shots and his combos. His striking accuracy and his placement, they've been impressive, especially for the bantamweight division, guys. He's looking to put fighters away. That's exactly what we're looking for as well. His offense kind of exposes him to counters, but again, it's not, his striking is looking really, really good. I don't really see him getting outstruck, but, again, everybody has a fighter's chance. As I said, he's still early in his career, so he's still working to improve his pacing. He doesn't need to go all out in the first 3 minutes of the fight. He's got to, again, let the fight dictate where it needs to go. He doesn't want to gas out or anything like that. But in terms of, his ground game too, he's pretty active when it comes to scrambles and good level changes. He creates submission opportunities for himself, so he really looks to finish the fight wherever it wants to go. His path to victory, I see, is establish striking rhythm early. Use the jab, quick combos to send up feints and takedowns. Threaten submissions off exchanges. Obviously, if he's kicking ass in the stand-up game, if his opponent shells up, boom, what are we going to do? Pivot to level change, get a scramble, and get the sub. Gurule, on the other hand, he's having a time in the UFC, boys. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He's coming off unanimous decision loss to Jesus Santos Aguilar that happened in September, and he's riding a 2-fight losing streak. On the plus column, he's never been submitted before. He's got some pretty good hands. He's a volume puncher guy, and he's willing to poach scrambles and use wrestling control. His grappling is more functional than it is offensive. He's a more defensive guy. He's not really hunting for submissions. He does have I think he has 1 or 2 on his record, but don't quote me on that. In terms of KOs and TKOs, he has got 5 on his record. So it's above average for the weight class. His takedown offense, like we said, isn't elite. He's not looking to really take you down, but he can if he needs to. If he throws up a prayer. He lost his first 2 UFC appearances. One's to Ode Osborne, and the other one was to Jesus. Like I said, or just this other one was Jesus Aguilar. His path to victory, as I see it, is maintain his pressure early, use combos to force reactions in open space. He's got to mix up his targets as well too. Head and body strikes, and he's got try to mix up the rhythm of Coria. Keep him guessing. Basically, the X factor I see for this one is the fight should come down to wrestling control versus high volume takedown. Coria has more tools for distance in terms of where the fight goes. He's using takedown pressure, top control, and elite striking defense that can mitigate kind of Gurule's volume control. So I think this, it's Coria's to win, to be honest. I think minus 275 is kind of light, but I'm going to say Coria, and I'm going to say finish second round TKO. Next fight, we got Ode Osborne taking on Alibi Idris in the bantamweight division. Osborne is a plus 120 underdog, while Yadier is a minus 145 favorite. Okay, Ode Osborne, he is 6-7 in the UFC. He's coming off unanimous decision loss to Steve Erceg. That happened in August, and he is looking for a win like you wouldn't believe. He is 1-4 in his last fights. He's another one that could be taking get him a ticket on the bus. He's looking for another promotion if he doesn't do too well in this fight. He's a southpaw striker, versatile finishing tools. 6 knockouts to his credit, along with 4 submissions. So he's versatile. He is having a run of shit luck right now. He's just not getting it done. Like I said, his recent loss to Gurule, he shows good knockout power. If that can be seen from Gurule, he knocked the shit out of him. I mean, you saw he's got power. He can definitely finish fights. His striking accuracy and defense allows him to land first and avoid big shots. Again, his southpaw is his really strength, right? His southpaw stance. That has his rhythm, unpredictable, can create angles in a wide variety of ways. But if that's neutralized, that's where his fights kind of go to the left. If you take away that big strength southpaw stance, he's kind of fucked. Like I said, he's known for explosive movements, but again, if you can take that away from him, he dips in volume and he dips in decisiveness. That gets taken away, and that lets rounds slip away from him. His path to victory, as I see it, is control the geography early, right? Use his southpaw, dictate the jab, dictate the straights, and force his opponent to, react how he wants him to react. Timing and rhythm for Ode Osborne is everything, right? Feint level changes, set up heavy combos. And lastly, again, let's finish fast. His best wins come when he uses his explosive movements in the first 2 minutes of the fight. If he can get Alibi out of there in the first 2 minutes, he's living the dream. That's where he's going to try to capitalize. Alibi Idris, again, he's a Kazakhstan guy. He's 0-1 in the UFC. He's got subbed by Joseph Morales. That happened in August, and that was actually his, unfortunately, first loss was his, UFC debut. He's never been knocked out or KO'd before, but again, his core identity is wrestling, right? He's obviously from that side of the playground, Kazakhstan, Dagestan. We love the Wrestleistan. Let's get it done, right? Consistently tries to dictate the fight geography in the following ways, right? Let's get my opponent to the cage, let's clinch him up, and let's take him to the mat. This is exactly the kind of win the kind of fighting that steals minutes, that, secures the round, that he likes to keep it. He likes to keep it dirty, likes to keep it, in his framework of control. Even when exchanges get messy, he tends to reset control rather than chase low percentage chaos. The Ode Osborne does present a style that he could beat Alibi. Basically, if he keeps it at range, keeps him at the end of the jab, and he gets failed takedowns, obviously rounds could slip away from Yadier. His path to victory, obviously, is what? Cage first approach. Don't chase shots in open space. We're going to walk him down to the fence and then lock hands, take either a single leg or a body lock and trip you down to the cage, and just, rinse, rather, repeat. Also, top discipline, right, guys? Keep your hips heavy, wrist control, don't rush subs, and stack on the minutes. The X factors in this is simply volatility versus repeatability. Osborne has the higher ceiling early, but if, Yadier owns the more dependable path, clinch, takedowns, and control, he can win it. If Osborne doesn't find an early finish, again, I'm looking, the fight's going to tend toward Yadier in terms of where the, how he wants the fight to go for his pace and where he wants the fight to go. I'm going to say Yadier I'm going to say goes the distance in this one too. He hasn't shown me enough that he's going to get the finish. I know, and Osborne's kind of a vet in there, but I'm going to say I like Yadier for the win, but I'm going to say it goes the distance. All right, our featured prelim of the night is Carlos Leal taking on Chidi and Njokuani. Carlos Leal is a -125 favorite, while Njokuani is a +105 underdog. This fight is taking place in the welterweight division. All right, Leal's 1-2 in the UFC. He's coming off of a very solid KO loss to Muslim Sokolov that happened in July. He's a volume guy, guys. Volume pressure fighter. He likes walking down his opponents and relentlessly looks for those combos, dude. He is going after your fucking skull, and he's going after it with a purpose, right? His offense features a power jab and 1-2 combos. Those are his core go-to weapons. If you're watching the fight tape, that is exactly what he's going to throw at you. In his career, he's got 11 KO, TKO wins. Literally loves to overwhelm his opponents with pressure and with fire shots. Looks to stop the fight early and often, and that's because he can do it efficiently too. He really picks his shots well. Also, what I did like when I was watching his tape, he mixes his clinched knees pretty good, and he's really good in tight spaces. That just adds another layer to his stand-up arsenal. He's shown the ability to absorb shots and keep coming forward. That's really a good trait that complements his style, especially when he wants to walk you down. He can occasionally wrestle and he looks for submissions, but that's not really his game, obviously, right? He's a striking-centric guy. He's not looking to take you down. But again, his path to victory I'm seeing is open with a strong jab, lead 1-2, take the center, make Njokuani react, right? Mix high and low striking. Body shots are open if the head opportunities aren't there. So let's mix it up. Let's keep Njokuani guessing. And let's pressure without overextending. Keep forward momentum, but don't leave your chin out there to get fucking clipped. Chidi Njokuani, on the other hand, he's 7-4 in the UFC. He's coming off of a KO loss to Jake Matthews. That happened in July. He's a tall, rangy guy, right? He's 6'3", 80-inch reach. Really likes to use that first contact with teeps, long leg kicks. He's got that good Muay Thai kickboxing, pedigree. He was I think he was a kickboxer before. His best defensive / offensive move is the teep kick right to the body. He likes to use that like stabbing leg kick right to the liver. If opponents give him clean reads, he'll pile damage out without brawling. He's pretty good. Pretty good when it comes to read and reacting. He can get hit clean especially if he doesn't reset well. But that kind of leans to Leal's style against compact boxers. So he's got to learn how to just keep it at range. Obviously, his path to victory is, own the center with the long weapons. Teep, his jabs and his straights, angle off, and let's not drift back to the fence. Let's make these entries painful for Leal, right? Intercept with knees, long uppercuts, and when Leal ducks, let's use our hips. And if we can take him down, let's take him down. Kicks to the body early also, right? Let's drain the pressure. Let's drain the gas tank. Let's make him think before he's coming in. Let's try to get those liver kicks and, slow him down. This is a classic striker versus pressure striker matchup. I think this fight's getting finished. I don't see grappling entering this fight at all. This is, again, people are going to look for range versus forward discipline. I think Njokuani wins if he keeps it. He keeps the space, intercepts entries, and refuses, extended clinches. Leal wins, and on the other hand, if he turns this into a phone booth style fight, keep the distance close, and just really look for that structured boxing fighting. I'm going to say Leal here for the win, second round TKO. Hey everybody, just taking a quick break from the video to say if you like what you're seeing, like what you're hearing, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how you're doing with the picks in the comment section, and don't forget to share the video. So again, look forward to seeing and hearing from you in the future, and on to the main card. All right, later. What's up, boys and girls? We have finally made it to the main card. All right, kicking it off is going to be Michel Pereira taking on Zachary Reese in the middleweight division. Pereira is your -140 favorite, while Reese is your +115 underdog. All right, Pereira is 9-5 in the UFC. He's coming off of a KO loss against Kyle Dawkins that happened in August, and he is riding a 3-fight losing streak. Might be on the chopping block as well. We got a couple of guys on the card looking like that. He is one of the more physically gifted fighters on the roster. I know he used to fight at 170, but he looks a little stronger, a little less drained coming up to middleweight. He can finish the fight pretty much instantly from non-traditional angles. He's one of the most creative strikers that the middleweight division has. He's got speed, he's got bounce, he's got, leaping attacks. You name it, he's got it in terms of standing, When he takes you down, he's got the good, strong top control. That's only when he chooses to wrestle, obviously. And, he carries his power deep into his rounds. The only big thing that, that's really fucking him up later on in his career is, when he commits to his offense, he leaves his chin exposed. Now, obviously, it can, lead to a KO loss, case in point for Kyle Dawkins, too, A little later in his career, so he's willing to win minutes instead of chasing highlights in every exchange. So he's kind of fighting a little bit smarter and a little less reckless in his later career. Downside, obviously, counter strikers with patience can definitely find windows, definitely can find his chin. He's going to need to watch out for that. And fighters who stay compact, march forward, and limited space can definitely dull his creativity. For his path to victory, start measured, right? Use your feints, switch stances, low kicks before exploding into something creative. Burst and exit, right? Never admire your work. Don't stand there. Oh, look at the, head kick I just landed. Attack in 2 to 3 beat combinations and then reset. Obviously, you're going to need to mix takedowns and strikes with Zach Reese. Surprise shots. Keep him guessing. Zach Reese, on the other hand, he's 5-2-1 in the UFC. He's coming off a good sub win against Jackson McVeigh. That happened in November. Jackson McVeigh was supposed to be my guy. I thought he was going to show something deep into the UFC. He's kind of faltered. I think he's lost like 2 or 3 in a row, so you can't really hang your hat too much on that one. But Reese is riding a 2-fight win streak, and he's never been submitted before. Big front-loaded pressure striker. He looks to overwhelm his opponents pretty quickly. Very big power, long frame, and aggressive movement. Every professional win that he has come in inside the distance, so he can definitely finish you, and he can definitely finish you with some style, right? Like I said, he's tall, and he's got that broad frame, and once he hurts his opponents, he swarms quickly. Like sharks, he sees blood in the water, he's moving on it, right? Forces his opponents under pressure early, and the only big thing that I see with him is, when he kind of comes in, his head kind of stays on the center line during entries, and that can leave you to get smoked, right? Can be countered by, composed boxers or, in Pereira's case, creative strikers, right? Definitely he's got to be, in terms of guys he goes against that are chain wrestlers and clinch grinders, they can exploit gaps in his game. Pereira, I see, if he wants to win, I probably see him doing that, at least a little bit more often, but we'll see. The path for victory for Reese, on the other hand, start fast but smart, right? Pressure behind the jab before opening up on some serious power shots. Also, cut the cage in half, man. Don't chase. Let's walk down his opponents and let's walk him into the cage. Finish clean, right? Once rocked, force finish exchanges and then limit escape so we can get the finish early and get you early and out of there. I'm going to take Reese for this one. I'm going to say second round TKO simply because, this is it. Reese does not need minutes to win this fight. He needs moments, right? If he crowds Pereira early, cuts off space, and lands clean during a blitz, he's got a real chance to win. And I know he's the underdog of this one, but not by much. But I think, I really just don't think Pereira has enough gas left in the tank in this type in his career. So I'm going to say Zachary Reese, second round TKO. Next up in the welterweight division, we got Jacoby Smith taking on Josiah Harrell in the welterweight division. Jacoby Smith is a minus 330 favorite, while Harrell is a plus 240 underdog. All right, in this one, somebody's O has got to go. Both of these guys are undefeated. Smith is 3-0 in the UFC. He's coming off a good sub win against Nico Price that happened in October. And like I said, he's undefeated. Southpaw guy, likes to create angles, set up power shots, and tight pressure forces opponents to, get them in those uncomfortable exchanges. 8 out of his 11 wins are by KO, and a lot of those are coming in the first round, including multiple, subs in a minute too. Ceiling's really, really high for Jacoby Smith. I would have loved to see him take on the Korean Tyson. That was who he was supposed to fight. I understand he got a rib injury. Hey, whatever. But shout out to Josiah Harrell. You got some balls that can fit in a dumpster for taking this fight on a week's notice, especially like a guy against Jacoby Smith. But anyway, Jacoby Smith, he's still relatively new to the UFC. He hasn't fought anybody that's ranked in the welterweight division. So, this could be his next step to that. Co is supposed to be like the stepping stone for that. But, like I said, he's a former wrestler in college. I think he wrestled for Oklahoma State for a time. His path to victory is easy, right? Step in with the heavy jab, straight left, and then unsettle Harrell, right? Explosive combos, right? Low kick, left hand, right hook sequences. Those can get him out of there fast. Also, use your takedown ability. Use your threats of takedowns. Chain level changes off of strikes and secure top control. This is Josiah Harrell's UFC debut, baby. 11-0. He's undefeated, and what a way to make your UFC debut on a week's notice. He hunts the finishes too, man. His submissions and scrambles and damage-based stoppages when opponents panic. He's another southpaw, so it's two southpaws going against each other. Maybe that just cancels each other out. But, he curates different lanes with the left side, left cross, left kicks. And he appears to be comfortable initiating contact. He's not really, he's not waiting. He's definitely moving forward. At the UFC level, this is you're at a different game at this point. You're fighting the best guys in the world, and man, did you pick an opponent in Jacoby Smith. I know he's used to getting these early finishes, and he hasn't had really a 15-minute battle long, so that could be a test too. Do I think this is going to go the full 3 rounds? Absolutely not. I think, for the path to victory for Josiah is going to be striking keys, right? After any missed shot by Smith, he's got to do 1-2 hard counters, right? Make him pay for trying to, hit you and try to take you down. Use your defensive wrestling too. Fight for inside position, immediate, double underhooks, fight off the cage, and make sure he manages his rounds pretty good. By that I mean if he can't get the finish early, you got to be able to finish the first 2 minutes, the other 2 rounds pretty good. I'm going to go with Vegas on this one. I'm going to say Jacoby Smith gets the sub, maybe probably round 2, early round 3. I definitely think he's getting a finish. I saw Josiah Harrell's interview where he said he could make 170 easy, but I don't think he's cutting anything too heavy to get to 170. You know what I mean? Jacoby Smith is probably walking around at like 220, 210 easy. So probably the bigger fighter in there. Obviously he's going to have a little bit more in the gas tank. So I'm going to go Jacoby Smith. Submission, end of round 2, early round 3. Next up in the heavyweight division, we got number 7 ranked Sergey Spivak taking on number 9 ranked Ante Delija. Spivak's your plus 150 underdog, while Delia is your minus 185 favorite. Both of these guys are coming off a loss to my arch nemesis Waldo Cortez Acosta. That guy has cost me more money than an NBA player pays in child support. He is arch nemesis. But shout out to Waldo Cortez Acosta. He's riding like a 4-fight win streak, and he just made Derek Lewis look like a complete amateur. And I lost like another bet for that one. But on to this fight. We're talking about this guy. All right. Sergey Spivak, he's 8-6 in the UFC. He's coming off again, KO loss to Waldo Cortez Acosta. He's riding a 3-fight losing streak. When he just got touched in the chin by Cortez Acosta, and he went down. He went down like a sack of bricks, right? His best bet is when he gets his hands on you, he body locks, trips you, takes you down to the mat, and then he settles into top control. And he really works for that arm, an arm triangle or like head and arm choke. Excellent. He's really good at forcing opponents to the fence. Again, locking hands, and he's got heavy hips, man. He's good at really taking you down to the mat if he can get you there. Strong positional decision making. He stabilizes before attack. Precision before submission. Keeps opponents, flattened, and he advances very methodically. Rarely does anything in chaos. He doesn't want to give away position. On the other hand, though, he absorbs a fair amount of shots when he's trying to go get the takedown. If opponents can keep him at long range and punish entries, dude, he's falling flat on his face. I think he's a little chinny at this point in his career, right? If his first clinch attempt fails, he can be vulnerable on the reset, especially when he tries to get shots and gets the angles for the takedown. His paths to victory, as far as I see it, fence first, right? Don't chase an open space, cut the cage in half, lock your hands and get Delija on the cage and try to take him down. Chain your takedowns together, right? Single, switch the body lock, outside trip, make it a sequence. If it's not a shot right off the rip, then try to get him down off of time. Top time, if he gets you down, is better than chaos when scrambling, right? Secure position, then hunt for the high percentage submission. All right. Delija's 1-1 in the UFC. Again, coming off a KO loss against the Waldo Cortez Acosta that happened in November. I just was arguing on X about this with some dude. I think he was winning that fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta. I thought he clipped him a good 2-3 times, and then he got the eye poke, and he had to reset, and that's why he lost. I thought he looked really good standing up against Waldo Cortez Acosta. He looked good. Waldo Cortez Acosta, he makes his money by kind of backing up to the fence and then countering really well. But I thought Ante Delija looked really good right off the rip to that fight. But, beggars can't be choosers, right? He's got one finishing shot ability. He doesn't need volume. He's got real good power in his hands. If you look, his money shot is his straight right hand. If he touches you with that thing, lights out. He's willing to absorb a couple punches to land one back. For those who didn't know, he's a former PFL heavyweight champion. Really good strength, strong clinch wrestler. And, take that back. He can wrestle, but that's not really like his bread and butter. Strong clinch guys, that kind of gives him the problem. That kind of zaps him in terms of his cardio. But, if he gets stuck on the bottom, that's what's going to lose him the rounds early. In terms of path to victory for him, protect the fence, right? The fence is lava. It is hot. Let's not go to the fence. Circle out. Never accept back to the cage positioning. Punish on the entries. We know Sergey Spivak's game plan is to come in and try to take you down. Uppercuts and straight rights as he tries to change levels, those are your best friends. I could definitely see the fight ending on him uppercutting him when Spivak tries to get the entry on him. Personally, I'm saying this isn't even going to see round 2. I'm saying D'Elia round 1 KO. Basically, I'm back in the early power, counter striking, and entry punishment for D'Elia, right? He doesn't need volume. He just needs that one clean intercept for Survey Spivak to see, like, look up at the lights. But that's my decision, or excuse me, that's my choice. D'Elia, round 1 KO, end of story. I hope I'm proven right, because I literally was arguing with this dude on X for like 10 minutes. He could have sworn, like, pretty much just shitting on D'Elia all day. And again, we're also entering in the realm of, I know everybody fucking shits on the heavyweight division. It's shallow. It's never been this bad before, blah, 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 blah. Yalton Almeida just got cut. But hey, listen, we got to take with, you fight with the army that you brought to the war, right? This is who we got. This is who we're betting on. Enter D'Elia for the win. Next up, we have in the featherweight division, number 14th ranked Dan Ige taking on, Melquizael Costa. Ige is your plus 185 underdog, while Costa is your minus 225 favorite. Dan Ige is a vet in this cage, boys and girls. He's 12-9 in the UFC, coming off unanimous decision to loss to Patricky Pitbull that happened in July. I thought that could have gone either way. I mean, he kind of got outclassed in like the later rounds, but I mean, he didn't get dominated. He's 2-3 in his last 5. Again, he blends explosive striking with pressure really good. Pretty high level grappler. I know he was a D3 wrestler back in the day, and he's got good judo experience, so that kind of where his ground game comes from. Pretty good in short range exchanges. Hooks, uppercuts, body shots, those are his bread and butters. All 10 of his career losses are by decisions. When he can't finish, he sometimes gets outpaced in the cards. That kind of what loses him the rounds. But in terms of finishing him, it is very, very, very hard to do that. He relies on stepping and then trading. Opponents who make him fight backwards, that's the guys who are going to get him out of there. That's the guys who are going to win the rounds. He's a black belt in BJJ, and he can capitalize if he gets it on his back. He's not afraid to go to the ground. Past the victory for Ige, as I see it, explosive first level entries, right? Use medium punches, low kicks to set up takedowns and powerful combos. Let's get that pressure from the pocket too, right? Fight in tight range when his power and transitions are dangerous. And then chain finishes. Stay ready to wrestle instead of, defensively. Look to hunt for submissions when they open via, your strikes kind of open the door. Let's do that. Also, lastly, let's use our tempo changes, right? Mix forward pressure with sudden lateral movement, and let's disrupt his timing. Costa, on the other hand, he is 6-2 in the UFC, coming off a great KO win against Morgan Charrier. If anybody didn't see that, he took this head kick and just knocked Charrier on his ass out. The Dalmatian is coming for blood, okay? He might have the complexion of a napkin, but that dude is fucking for real. He's riding a 5-fight win streak. High tempo southpaw finisher, blends really sudden athletic striking. Obviously, like I said, high kicks, the knees, with opportunistic grappling. Proven ability to end fights fast, highlight KOs off the wall. Also what should be noted is submissions are a real part of his profile too, man. He's not just a defensive guy when it comes to the ground. He creates open side angles, with the left hand and left left hand and left hook. Forces orthodox opponents to really solve, he's like a riddle in there. So, solve the strategy, and you can create problems for him like that. Unfortunately, against steady, crafty opponents, the chaos style can lose minutes. That can lose him the round. That's kind of done it in the past. And, high output guys like Costa, guys who really expend a lot of energy via strikes in the first round, that can cost them later in the rounds, expend a lot of energy, not have enough gas in the tank to finish the fight. I don't think that's happening in this one, but I'm just, it is what it is. Past the victory as I see it, start fast, but layer it, right? Let's, long left kicks to the body and the leg. Let's feint, step in with the left straight. Let's make the veteran react before we blitz, right? Let's keep him guessing before we come up with those highlight, strikes. Force scrambles, don't settle. If a takedown attempt stalls, let's bail to the strikes, re-enter, and let's go in for the second time around, okay? Chaos equals transitions equals, takedowns. And then lastly, let's win the open space for Costa. Keep it off the fence unless, he's the one initiating the clinch, but let's, and turns into mat returns. But, let's really just let's take the center of the cage. I'm loving Costa on this one. I'm saying TKO, round 2. Basically, I'm back. He's got youth on his side, explosiveness, and he's got a real finishing upside. His ability to manufacture chaos, threaten with kicks, and capitalize in scrambles, it just gives him the pattern to win. Especially if he forces, Ige out like measured and point fighting rhythm. Like that's how Ige, he's a structured fighter. If he can force him outside of that, it's his all day. But I think he's going to get the finish. He's really has a lot of momentum behind him at this point in time in his career. So Melquizael Costa will take him round 2 TKO. Next up, we have Jeff Neal taking on Uros Medic in the welterweight division. Jeff Neal is your minus 200 favorite, while Medic is your plus 165 underdog. All right, Neal's 9-5 in the UFC. He's coming off a KO loss against Carlos Pratas that happened in August, and he's 2-3 in his last 5. I mean, yeah, he did get knocked out, but Carlos Pratas is no. I mean, dude, that dude's fucking good, dude. I mean, that's nothing to get. Hey, you lost, but you lost to a dude who's pretty fucking legit. He's comfortable throwing rear straight lefts, looping power punches, and he angles and entries to exploit orthodox fighters. He pushes the pace. He looks to overwhelm his opponents rather than just be this tactical guy who looks to, he waits instead of waiting. He's the aggressor. His ground game in terms of wrestling, it's serviceable, but it's not elite by any means of the stretch of the imagination. It's more opportunistic than dominant, if that makes sense, right? His pace can dip, especially after the first round fireworks. That really works against him. And then sometimes, obviously, this goes for everybody, but especially for Jeff Neal, aggressiveness can lead to counters and defensive gaps, as we've seen against Carlos Pratas. Path to victory in terms for Neal, establish the southpaw straight early, right? Let's find comfortable range with the straight left and mix in the body shots and keep opponents guessing, right? Also, let's capitalize early too, because that's where his bread and butter is. Attack looks sharper in earlier rounds. Let's set traps and combos, and before fatigue sets in. Because if he gets to the later the fight goes, the more Medic is set to win this one. And then lastly, selective grappling for Jeff Neal, right? Let's only grapple when it's advantageous for him. Avoid prolonged wrestling scrambles that zap energy. No bueno for that. Medic, on the other hand, I don't see him. He's not a big grappler anyway, so it kind of works out well for him. But Medic is 7-3 in the UFC, coming off a good TKO win against Muslim Sakalov. That happened in November, and he's riding a 2-fight win streak. Medic is kind of finding his rhythm right now. I got to give him credit. Anybody who watches his tape, his straight left, that is the money shot. That is what he's coming with, and he is ruthless when it comes to that shot. I mean, he can knock you out pretty quick with that. He's comfortable waiting for his opponents to make the first mistake and then really cracking them when they screw up in the count. He'll throw the left right down the pipe and end you like it's no tomorrow. Even when he gets clipped early, he had that, I forget who he had that great comeback fight against, but he got clipped early, reset, and then still found a way. Oh, no, Urbina, that's who it was. Still found a way to not only win, but he won in great fashion. Like I said, though, the same aggression that makes him dangerous is the same type of thing that can leave his chin exposed in exchanges. He's been dropped before. Jeff Neal's definitely got the power to drop him. So he's got to really, really watch his aggressiveness. His profile is pretty much, hey, let's finish you rather than just win the round and win the minutes, right? If he can survive the first wave, force longer sequences, he's good to go in the longer weighted rounds. Path to victory, as I see it for him, let's win the lead foot battle, right? Outside angle, straight left to keep the orthodox opponents from lining up on the right hand. Let's touch first, then detonate. By that I mean, let's show the jab, let's show some feints, and then fire that fucking straight left straight down the pipe that, he'll never see it coming. Also, let's finish smart, right? When you hurt him, step inside with a safe angle and force him into your left again. Let's lead him into your money shot, right? Pause. Let's lead him into something that's good, that's going to hurt him and put him away. If the fight goes long, Medic has got the ability to use those calf kicks and really damage his legs and also hurt the body as well. I'm going to go with the underdog on this one. I really think Medic wins if he keeps it fast, clean, and violent early. I think it's going to be Medic is going to put him out of there. Second round TKO. I really like his style the last 2 fights. He's shown a lot of heart. Not a knock on Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal's got a good record, but I just think Medic has got good. His striking's too elite for Neal. So I'm going to go Medic round 2 TKO. And on to the main event. We have the number 3 ranked Sean Strickland taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who's ranked number 4 in the middleweight division. Sean Strickland's your underdog at a plus 225, while Hernandez is a minus 285 favorite. All right, let's get into it, boys and girls. Sean Strickland, all right, he's 16-7 in the UFC. He's coming off a unanimous decision loss to Dricus du Plessis. Everybody saw him kind of get dominated in the wrestling aspect of it. He's coming back with a year-long layoff due to suspension, obviously. Due to suspension, obviously. And for those interviews that everybody's seen, Strickland was saying that, hey, man, I got injured. I shouldn't have really taken the DDP fight. Now I'm back 100%. The UFC kind of forced me into it. Not making excuses, but, hey, he said his shoulder was fucked up. So I got to take the guy on his word. Okay. Obviously, he's got that upright stance, tight defensive read. And obviously for Sean Strickland, let's march my opponent back to the cage. A lot of jabs, a lot of teeps, and a lot of feints. He's got great cardio, rarely looks tired, and he can keep the same tempo up into the championship rounds. Everything comes off the jab for Sean Strickland, right? He frames out, disrupts entries, and he sets up that right hand. Another good thing for Sean is basically he's good at taking away space without sprinting. Just constant small steps to keep coming forward, okay? Hard to get clean looks when he's doing a rhythm. Obviously the knock on Sean Strickland is, when he keeps that upright stance, he leaves his front leg exposed, and it's really good for calf kicks and leg kicks. Alex Pereira saw that a mile away, and that's kind of how he, was able to knock him out. Against elite counter guys, volume can, pretty much becomes pointless without damaging him, right? And if his hands get low in boxing exchanges, basically he can be taken down. Path to victory for Sean Strickland, as I see it, is with the first 90 seconds of every round, jab, teep, set the range up, establish the guy on the back foot. He's got to break entries, right, guys? Stiff jab, step off, don't retreat, just keep check hooking and then circle around. Also, if Fluffy wants to do level, take him down, let's punish the level changes. Jab to collar tie, short uppercuts, and immediately frame out. I know that's a lot easier said than done against Fluffy Hernandez, but that's his path to victory. Sean Strickland, a lot of people have always said Sean Strickland's ground game is very, very underrated. He's really a wizard on the ground. He's one of the better wrestlers in the middleweight division. That certainly didn't look like it against the DDP fight, but again, he said he was hurt, so it remains to be seen. All right, Fluffy Hernandez, on the other hand, he's 9-2-1 in the UFC. He's coming off a sub win against Roman Dolidze that happened in August, and the dude is on a tear. He has an 8-fight win streak. His style kind of favors control, positional dominance, and opportunistic strikes followed by submission threats, right? He has some of the highest control time in all of the middleweight division, even in all of UFC middleweight history, He's excellent in initiating the takedown and maintaining dominant positions, which is not a good style for Sean Strickland. Strong transitions leading directly into submission opportunities. Another good thing for him is he often takes opponents' backs once he locks in the scrambles and or bulldogs takedowns. What I saw are his strikes are frequent and used to create openings for takedowns and submissions. He's good. He's not a bad striker. You know what I mean? He's not elite, but obviously he's looking to do that so he can keep you guessing, so he can take you down, right? Aggressive scramble hunting sometimes leaves you open for counters. That's kind of, I don't know if, hopefully that's what Sean Strickland is going to try to do here. But path to victory for Hernandez is start with grappling threats early. Level changes to takedowns to zap opponents' energy and Zach Sean's rhythm, right? Mixed strikes and takedown setups. Double up on the jab, low inside leg kicks, feints, shoot, and then takedown. He's going to have to be a master into the transition games, right? Once on top, use transitions to secure back control and just go for the choke. Lastly, and just use his relentless pressure. Chase the scrambles, be proactive rather than reactive. So I'm going to take, now this is the hot take, I'm taking Sean Strickland for this one. I think this is going to go the distance. I think his jabs and his teeps are going to be too much for Hernandez. Sean Strickland, he's back healthy, right? I got to take the guy at his word. When he's on, he's on. If you look at that Israel Adesanya fight, he is on, dude. He almost put Israel Adesanya away. He can strike with the best of them. He's got especially if he's not just being super aggressive and he fights a little bit smarter. Now, don't get me wrong. Ring rust is a real thing. A year off is a real thing, but it's not like he was hurt. He's training every day. He's living in the gym. He's going to be back to old form, I feel like. So I'm going to say Sean Strickland goes the distance. We're putting our money on that one. But that ends the card for the night for UFC Fight Night 267. I really appreciate you guys for sticking with me for the whole card preview. Let's get paid, baby. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one.